I quit tanking, at least for the rest of Endwalker. This is something I've been considering doing for a while, and considering the fact that I've been too lazy to step into Savage this tier and probably have a while before 7.0, I thought I'd give another job and roll a chance. But why though? Keep in mind, this is my opinion. For a while, I would consider myself a tank guy. My first real FF video was about Paladin. I did an entire series about the state of tanking in this game. So why did I quit? Very good question. For a while, I considered tanking to be my preferred role in any MMO. I may not enjoy it. In all the games I've played, Elder Scrolls Online tanking was particularly miserable for me, but going into FF14, I always assumed that I would end up playing a tank as my main role. Coming from WoW, I was exclusively playing tank at that point. I was bear swiping my way through keys. It was very therapeutic. The first job I got to 90 was Paladin. I prioritized getting all tanks to 90 before any other role. I still don't have a caster or a Vizgal ranged at 90 yet. So why, after all this time invested, am I stopped again, only for the rest of Endwalker? There's a few different reasons. First, there's just the raid design. This isn't exclusively a 14 issue. This is shared across every other MMO. When it comes to raid mechanics, tanks end up getting the shaft a lot of the time. The only mechanic unique to them is tank busters, and that's it. And while 14 has some of the better ones I've experienced, it's still just not all that engaging for me. To add to that, one of my favorite things about tanking in other games is moving the boss. It sounds kinda dumb, but let me elaborate. I can't explain why, but it's satisfying to me. Having the boss follow me and learning what some of the best spots to keep the boss in the arena are is a very satisfying process. Bosses like Shadar from Nyalotha come to mind. That is one of the best fights to tank in WoW. N'Zoth, also from the same raid, having to move the boss to the tentacles and then having your team kill the tentacles, that keeps me engaged. That helps me deal with the rather lackluster rotations that most tanks have. With 14, most fights are just dance fights. It's finding the right spot to be in and moving to that spot, rinse and repeat. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But after a few pulls, it just gets kind of repetitive, which can be made up by the rotation of whatever job or class I'm playing, which leads me to my next reason. Tank rotations by themselves aren't particularly engaging to me. And that comes with the territory. You are going to have to sacrifice some spells and damage for mitigation abilities. But when I'm doing prog on a boss and the mechanics are just repeating and repeating, and I'm doing the same rotation, I zone out. I miss mechanics because my tiny little smooth baby brain has a low attention span. I remember specifically P7S, I was playing Dark Knight at the time, we're like an hour into raid night, I'm kinda bored, I start missing tank busters, which again is a me problem. That is my own low attention span. Now you may be wondering, wouldn't the same thing happen no matter the role? And you're kinda right. If I'm playing a healer, the same raid wides are gonna happen. The only variable is if someone messes up a mechanic. And with DPS, your rotation tends to play out the same pull on pull. The difference specifically with DPS, which I'm leaning towards choosing, is the competitive factor. And this is another reason. I'm pretty competitive. I can't explain it, it's just the way I am. With tanking or even healing, there isn't much I can do better. Sure, damage, but even then, tank damage gets pretty wonky with balancing sometimes. However, with DPS, specifically magic or physical, there is that competitive element. I'm looking at my damage meat. I have my calculator on my desk next to my keyboard, and I'm calculating not only my damage output, but my fellow DPS's damage. And I'm trying to get the larger number, again, on my calculator. So with DPS, even though I'm doing the same mechanics, my rotation is playing out the same way, there is another element of optimization there. Like, okay, on this pull, can I position myself this way to improve my output, or can I hold this ability to help? Stuff like that, which really does help keep me engaged. The last real big reason I have ties back to my first real big video on this channel, and that's job homogenization. I remember I made that video specifically because of tanks. After capping all of them, they all just kind of felt the same. And that's a big turnoff for me. I won't spend too much time talking about it, but yeah, homogenization is definitely a turnoff for me. It happens with other roles, but in my opinion, and this could be my bias, it's the worst with tanks. So those are the big reasons. Overall, I still do enjoy tanking. I'll probably keep Warrior in the back pocket, but at this point, I'm gonna wait and see if 7.0 can address some of the issues I have, and maybe even give us a new tank. Who knows? But what do you think about tanking right now? This is all my opinion. Again, I really want to stress that. You don't have to agree with me. Be on the lookout for a video about the role and job I choose to get into for the rest of Endwalker. Again, leaning towards DPS, but I'll leave you in suspense. And subscribe.